Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody. Have a happy Friday, the happy confluence of it being a Friday and the 4th of July, Independence Day. I'm Andrew Langer, in for Larry O'Connor. It is 7:06 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. Yeah, we still say Friday, even if Patrice isn't here, also taking a well-deserved day off on this Independence Day, one of my favorites of holidays. Listen, we're going to be joined later on in this hour by Tim Graham from Newsbusters. We've got Anna Medvedeva joining us as well, running for Congress down in Florida. Later on in the show, Emily Sturge from Campus Reform. We're going to talk about this new generation of patriotism that seems to be surging in America. Roma Daravi from the Kennedy Center, our old friend Roma Daravi, and Scotty Hughes, the newest senior fellow at Frontiers of Freedom, to talk about her plan to capture the minds of young people. But joining us right now, couldn't be more timely. Very excited to bring her on. Her name is Jane Hampton Cook. She's a presidential historian. She's the author of a new book series, Revolutionary Readers. She's got a new book out, Why the 4th of July. And Jane, I mean, listen, I know that my patriotism stems from the fact that I was 5 years old during the 1976 bicentennial, and that had a seminal role in my development of my love for this nation. That's why you've written this series, isn't it?
Yes, I've really, especially with America's 250th, I wanted children and their parents and their teachers to reconnect with what makes America America. And we're seeing a surge of pride in the country. The polls are showing that. And so that's exciting as we head into really a year of celebrations. But, you know, and there was also a few years ago, there was the 1619 project that tried to redetermine the nation's birth date. And so what I wanted to do in this book was to show other important things, but they were not the birthday. It's when we issued the Declaration of Independence, that is the birth of the United States.
Yes. And you know something, it's interesting because I used to do an annual screening of the musical 1776, and I stopped for a while. I think I need to start doing that again. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to be on the 250th birthday. I mean, talk about why this is important. I mentioned this earlier. I'm going to probably talk a little bit more about this later on. We seem to have lost the common frame of reference. Right? In the 1970s, we had Schoolhouse Rock. We had History Rock. We learned about No More Kings. We learned about the shot heard around the world. Anybody who watched ABC cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons, got, you know, their full measure of this common frame of reference on who we are. We've lost that. Talk about the series, what it means, and how folks ought to utilize it.
Well, I realized that there's a category of books on Amazon called Step Into Reading. They have numbers on them, and that's based on the age of your child or school grade. You're a 1 if you're a first grader, et cetera. But there were no books that were patriotic. There was nothing about the flag or the basic symbolism of the flag, and there certainly weren't, you know, patriotic songs. And so that's why I wrote Revolutionary Readers for America's 250th, so children could learn about the flag and where they see the flag in our culture. Is it at school? Is it at church? Is it, you know, on the post office? And then learning more about what the pledge is and why we have a pledge and how do we get the pledge. And then just even just something as simple as the lyrics to America the Beautiful, but with these gorgeous watercolor pictures, showing different children, you know, around the country, and you know, from the Golden Gate Bridge, the Statue of Liberty, you know, just to showcase those basic things that I take for granted because I was inspired, like you were as a kid, with the bicentennial, and I want to see that resurgence, and that's why I've written this book series. And I'm also doing a short video series on YouTube and on TikTok, so that I can try to reach different demographics and just give them little bits of, you know, what was the big deal about the Boston Tea Party, and what does no taxation without representation mean? And just those things that we sort of take for granted,
right,
you know, if we've been on the planet a while.
Absolutely. My guest is Jane Hampton Cook. She's an author, presidential historian. She's got this new great book series, Revolutionary Readers. You can check them out. You can find them on Amazon. So you're telling me, Jane, that the symbolism on the American flag, it's not because Bugs Bunny stepped on a rake in front of Betsy Ross and saw stars, and which again, how I learned. I got to tell you something. Again, I was this avid consumer of pop media having to do with the founding. 1976, again, a seminal year. I'm 5 years old. So, anytime Bugs Bunny was talking about American history, there was a Schoolhouse Rock, as I've mentioned. There was a really bad series of cartoons called Hector Heathcote that I loved as a kid because it was all about these things. We need to be engendering in our young people and our kids this love of country, don't we? Yes, we absolutely do. And this ardent love of Republican form of government must always exalt patriotism. That is from King George III, because he finally realized what it was going to take for America to survive. And it wasn't obviously heredity, but it was going to be love of country. Right. And so if our first enemy got it, we kind of understand why, enemy forces, also try to dampen our patriotism today. Right. Right. Because think about it. At the same time we are moving into the bicentennial, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. Oh, good Lord, the one it has to do with Austin. It's not Slacker. Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused, a movie taking place in Austin, Texas, the summer of 1976. It's the last day of school, and one of the teachers there was talking about how. Really remember what you're celebrating, kids, is a bunch of white slave owners who didn't want to pay their taxes. And wow. As we're doing this, right, there was this inculcation that was starting to happen. We've had 50 years of unrelenting targeting of who we are as a people. That's why this series is so important, isn't it? Yes, that is very true. We have to counter the negative messaging out there. And, George Washington and the founders, they really wanted the name American to be something that united us. We couldn't – the flag started out as a symbol of unity and union, and it still is that. Right. But in order for us to see it as a symbol of freedom, it had to first be a symbol of unity, of the union of those 13 states. And we lost our identity as colonies on July 4th, 1776. We said goodbye to the word colonies, and we embraced the word states. And I think that's something that gets missed in everything as well. Our guest is Jane Hampton Cook. She's a presidential historian and author. She's got a website, janecook.com, spelled just as it sounds. So, Jane, how are you going to be spending your Independence Day? And you call it Why the 4th of July. I mean, we should make sure we also call it Independence Day. How are you spending your Independence Day? What are you going to be doing today? I am spending it with my family. Yeah. And we haven't decided if we're going to take a little hour trip or if we're going to go 20 minutes away. But we're looking forward to it. Fireworks, yes. Excellent. And, I asked Michael Watley this question. You have the traditional Independence Day barbecue spread in front of you. What's the first thing you go for? What's the must-have on your plate? Golly, maybe corn. There you go. On the cob, that sounds pretty good to me. But I'm from Texas, so I love a good barbecue. There we go. Something? I will tell you, I've become very proficient at smoking brisket. Which is I'm like you. I believe that actually. You say you're Texas. I'm assuming that for you, when you hear barbecue, you think brisket. It may not be, but I've made several briskets now, and I've become quite proud of this. So, good. That's awesome. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. No, I was just going to say that fireworks, that tradition started in Virginia. Wow. Because Virginians declared independence on May 15, 1776, and they celebrated with a parade and with fireworks. Well, as it happens, the first documented use of fireworks. So. I will be spending my 4th of July in Williamsburg, Virginia. So, but it's interesting. They didn't do anything on May 15th this year. Next year, I got to find out if Williamsburg is doing something on May 15th to celebrate. They actually may be. I think they're doing that, yeah. There you go. All right, Jane, how do folks find out more about the good work you're doing? How do they get the books? JaneCook.com and then Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. And I have a Substack, JaneHamptonCook.substack.com. I will make sure we get that out there. Jane Hampton Cook, thank you so very much for joining us today.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
Well, it is 7:36 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. Happy Independence Day, everybody. Happy 4th of July. I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor here on O'Connor and Company. Great show. So much more to come. Scotty Hughes in the next hour. Roman Daravi in the next hour. Emily Sturge in the next hour. Later on in this half hour, Anna Medvedeva, Florida congressional candidate and emigre from Russia. We're going to talk about how being born in Russia makes her even more of a patriotic American. But joining us right now is Tim Graham. He's the executive editor of Newsbusters and the host of the wonderful Newsbusters podcast. And Tim, man, I've been talking about how the Democrats have gone off the deep end. The left has gone off the deep end. You guys have been looking at their slavish devotion. I could use a very charged term for what they're doing to Zoran Mamdani. Well, what's your take on this? I mean, they're trying to push America leftward by propping this guy Mamdani up, aren't they?
Yes, I always love to say that, if you listen to the media, the epic political battles of our time are between the ultra-conservatives and the nonpartisans.
I love it.
They can't seem to use they can't call him a liberal. I mean, they will call him a democratic socialist because that's what he calls himself.
Right.
Now, if a socialist doesn't call themselves a socialist, they don't either. But, I mean, they also call him a charming socialist.
Yes, charming
he's
socialist.
Charming while he takes your money.
You know who was a charming socialist? Che Guevara was a charming socialist who preached about putting people up against a wall and shooting them. So, yeah, I always loved the charming socialist. Yeah, Vladimir Lenin, very charming. Actually, Vladimir Lenin was very cold. But, nevertheless, Lavrenti Beria was very charming. Actually, I don't know that for a fact. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry, Tim. I apologize.
No, it's so... I think that within Democratic circles, this was a surprise because it is the insurgent 33-year-old guy beating Andrew Cuomo. Well, Andrew Cuomo was damaged goods. But, I mean, they are trying to present him in a positive manner.
Right.
The interviews with him are very mellow, or they're trying to help him. The interview that NPR did this week was just amazing in terms of their, explain how the Republican attacks on you are racist and bigoted, because somehow he's not anti-Semitic.
Right. But again, now you think about it. Think about this, Tim, right? The Harry Ensign reporting this week, a 56% point shift in Democrats' views towards Palestine. It used to be that they favored the Israelis by 13%, and then a 43-point shift the other, or now it's 43% more favor Palestine in this. I mean, listen, NPR knows their demographic, which is probably why we need to make sure that they're defunded. But I mean, that's astounding to me.
Well, and yes, his interviewer was Layla Fadl, who in this case was Layla Coddle.
Yes,
and proud Muslim Lebanese American.
Yeah.
The Twitter account Western Lensman had this photo of the two of them because they made a video for YouTube. The two of them giggling with each other, and I'm like, that's pretty much the way it went down.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tim, let's shift gears because President Trump has had a great couple of weeks here. I mean, historic couple of weeks here. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act passes. And again, the hue, cry, moan, wail, gnashing of teeth from the leftist press. Talk about that.
Well, obviously, yes, this was a big thing for them. The column I did today.
Yes.
It's all about how, I get these emails, and they're all like 20 million people starving, ripped from their health care. I mean, they pulled out all the things that Democrats usually pull out. And the Republicans put this together and passed it. The president's going to sign it. The main thing is that it just maintains the tax cuts where they were in 2017. Right. Biden never repealed them, but they were in danger of expiring.
Right.
So that is a win. That's not just a win for Trump. That's a win for all of us. And they always tried to pretend this is all about the billionaires. But when Trump passed this, it cut taxes for almost all Americans.
Right. And we talked about this, with the measurements that Peter Franchia, the comptroller of Maryland, the Democratic comptroller of Maryland, did. But I want to talk about this, the cognitive dissonance, right, and the mass hysteria that this creates. Because again, talking to somebody yesterday about the One Big Beautiful Bill, said, they're gonna cut Medicaid coverage from 30 million Americans. I'm like, wait, where'd you? That's like a number I haven't heard yet, and I've heard all kinds of numbers from people.
Yeah.
The problem is, right, Tim, and we're talking with Tim Graham. He's the executive editor of Newsbusters, the host of the Newsbusters podcast. When there is this cognitive dissonance, when the reality of the world doesn't line up with the worldview of these progressives, and they are being pushed ever more extreme, this is the problem. You get this mass hysteria. You get the crazy lady on TikTok yelling about MAGA. You get other stuff, out there. We've got some real problems on this Independence Day with as you said, the coddling by places like NPR that serve to perpetuate this mass hysteria, don't we?
Well, and I think here's the problem is I see it, and, I've been doing this job at the Media Research Center since 1989.
Wow.
And so, back in the 90s, this was the big thing with Newt Gingrich. He was cutting Medicare cuts, Medicaid cuts. They used this language. Now, if we went actually into the graphs and tables, Medicare and Medicaid never go down.
Right.
They've been increasing by leaps and bounds. They're major drivers of the deficit. But
Right.
if you listen to these people and the way they characterize this bill, there are massive cuts in Medicaid. There aren't cuts in Medicaid. They did try to say, let's make sure the illegal immigrants aren't getting Medicaid.
Right.
So let's try to make sure there's not waste, fraud, and abuse. And they're going to call that a cut.
Right.
But the spending on Medicaid is going to keep going up. But,
Right.
They're making sound. You're ripping health care away from millions.
Right. We're cutting it away from. We're cutting away aid from states, but we're giving aid to hospitals, which is a whole other thing. But no rural hospital is going to close as a result of this. They're going to get their money. Tim, listen, it's your 4th of July, and you've been very gracious to give us your time on this Independence Day. How do folks find out more about the great work you're doing at MRC and Newsbusters?
Well, we're at newsbusters.org, and that Newsbusters podcast is everywhere. It's on your Spotify and Apple and all those places, and you can hear Curtis Houck and I gabbing about stuff up there right now. Pop-Tarts. Somehow Pop-Tarts are patriotic.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you, man. I love listening to you guys gab. It's always fun. Tim Graham, have a happy 4th of July, my friend.
Thank you, Andrew. That's
Tim Graham, the executive editor of Newsbusters at the Media Research Center, Newsbusters podcast host, along with Curtis Houck. Tim J. Graham is his X account. We got so much more to come at 7:44 on WMAL.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
You know who appreciates the principles upon which America was founded? Russian emigres. And I had the opportunity to talk with Anna Medvedeva last week. She's running for Congress down in Florida. Let's hear what Anna has to say. Medvedeva. She is a candidate for the 22nd Congressional District down in Florida. She is Ukrainian by birth, but grew up and was raised for some time in what we now refer to as the former Soviet Union. And I'm starting off with a general question, Anna. What does Independence Day mean to you?
Well, you put it correctly. I actually was born in Moscow,
okay.
in the Soviet
Go.
Union 50 years ago. My family is Russian and Ukrainian.
Okay.
We have on both sides. And, sometimes people, often actually, they ask me, with the conflict and the war going on, to pick sides.
Yes.
And it's,
it's hard.
It's terrible. It's hard, and it's unfair question. Do not want to pick sides. I want for people to stop dying.
Right here.
That's
Absolutely.
what I want. On both sides, we lost over 1 million people, and that's just terrible. And we need to figure this out and move on from this.
So how long have you been in the States?
I have been in the States for over 25 years.
25 years.
Yes.
Got it. And you're concerned about the way things are going. That's why you're getting involved.
Absolutely. I'm running for Congress because certain developments, I am proudly a legal immigrant to the United States. I came on work visa 25 years ago. It took me 7 years to get to the citizenship, certain steps had to be taken. You have to be respectful. You couldn't break the law. You have to observe so many rules, which I fully support.
Sure.
You address your first question. What
Right.
does it mean? What is it? Does independent means?
Absolutely.
What does that mean to me? It brings joy when
Yes.
people get together.
And by the way, hold on. As I'm watching this, and I'm watching Anna here,
Yes.
you can see her eyes light up when she talks about this.
Yes.
So you get it's very clear this is emotional for you.
Yes, it
Yeah.
brings me joy.
Yes.
United States of America is a unique country. You can move to Italy. You
Yeah.
can move to England. You can move to France. You will never become Italian. Or
Literally,
French
this is literally what I say all the
or
time.
English. You move to the United States.
You can move
of
to
America.
Russia or Ukraine, and you will never be Russian or Ukrainian, right?
But you move to the United States and you become an American. You
Right.
belong to this family of amazing people, amazing patriots, doing so many amazing things right. I
Right.
mean, it's us sitting with different backgrounds of different upbringing, and we get together here in this conference room, and it's just a joy and a pleasure. We're doing amazing work together.
And we all so go and check her out. I know we're going to end the interview there. Anna Medvedeva, and Medvedeva. She's running for Congress down in Florida. We got so much more to go here at 7:52 here on O'Connor and Company WMAL.